Hey there, welcome to Black Gumbo Southern Gardening. It's time for another question and answer episode. Let's get started. Okay, I've got my list of questions here, and the first one comes from Catherine Sword. Catherine says, do I need shade cloth on my raised bed small vegetable gardening? She's located in direct sun, and with the current hot temperatures, she was just wondering if she needed to provide some relief, you know, containers with tomatoes and peppers and herbs and stuff. Catherine, yeah, it's hot, man. It's almost 90 degrees here. My plants are looking like they're stressed out, but it's especially those that are in containers that are going to suffer during hot weather, because those containers are just a small soil sample, and the moisture in that soil wicks out and evaporates really quickly. So, the things I would do for container gardening in hot weather are mulch heavily. Put a heavy layer of mulch on top of that soil. That helps to retain some of the moisture in there. Anything you can do to retain moisture in a container. Get a container that's a light color so that it reflects heat rather than absorbs it. If you've got a black container, paint it white, and that will help to reflect some of the radiation from the sunlight and help that pot not heat up as much. Shade cloth can be a good idea, especially with containers. In the height of summer, shade cloth is a good idea. It helps to give your plants a little bit of relief from the sun. So yes, it is a good idea actually. As for me, I never have used shade cloth, and I don't anticipate doing so. One way you can get around using shade cloth is just water every day. Go out in your garden whenever it's convenient for you, and make sure your plants have plenty of moisture. Yeah, it's hot, man. Some of my plants are looking really sad right now, but that's just the way they do it. And the natural process that happens is called transpiration. And when it's really, really hot, your plant will pump all the moisture down into its roots and will transpire moisture out of its leaves from the petioles, they're little holes on the bottom side of the leaves, and they will wilt. They'll look like they're dying. They're not dying, they're just protecting themselves from an overly hot day. When the sun goes away, come out in the evening, you'll notice most of your plants have perked up again. But keep them well watered, keep the soil moist. A good test is to stick your finger down in the soil about, well, up to your second knuckle or so. And if you feel dry soil down there, like powdery, dry, crumbly soil, you need to water. But if it's slightly moist down there, you're good. Our next question comes from Victoria Marshall. Thank you for your question, Victoria. She says, how long does it take for the cardboard to disintegrate when you're using cardboard as a mulch? Well, let's take a look. I've got cardboard here that I put down, and it still looks as fresh as the day it was laid. This is about, maybe two or 3 months old. So cardboard as mulch is going to last quite a while. I've had cardboard last an entire season and go into the next growing year. If it gets in the way, if it gets annoying, just pull it up and put it in your compost pile. But cardboard will, depending on how much moisture, how much rain you get, cardboard will last a good long while, at least the entire growing season before it begins to break down. And again, that's all contingent upon how much moisture you get. If you get a lot of moisture, the soil is going to be damp, there's going to be a lot of bacterial life in there, and the worms are going to be more prone to come and munch on that cardboard and break it down. So that's one of the reasons why we have a wood mulch on top of the cardboard. The cardboard smothers the weeds. There are no weeds right in here. Well, I lie, there's one right there. But for the most part, there are no weeds here, and that's what I wanted. I have even kept the weeds out of the holes in my cinder blocks here. And you can see there's no weeds growing down in here. That is awesome. This is what I want. And so cardboard is very helpful in that regard. But it'll break down, say a season, maybe 2 seasons. Again, it's all contingent upon the moisture. And wow, I just noticed I have my very first cayenne pepper right here. Check that out. Look at that. Man, that's awesome. That's awesome. All right, my next question comes from Philip Barnes, and he says, curious, how would an onion taste without curing it? He's never grown them before, and just curious why you couldn't eat one straight out of the garden. Well, let's do a taste test. What I have here is a purple onion. It is not ready to be harvested because the neck is stiff and it's standing upright. But we're going to harvest this one anyway. There we go. Now it's a small onion, but it's enough that we can test. What I'm going to do, I'll take this inside and we will try this onion compared to one that has been cured of the same variety, a purple onion. So we'll do that indoors. Here is a purple onion from the same batch that this one was harvested. This one's been fully cured. You can see the neck is fully papered. I can take those greens off and you can see that it's fully papered in there. So this is a storage onion. It's ready to store. The outside skin is nice and papery. So we're going to try that one, but we're going to compare it to one that is not completely cured at all. In fact, that neck is pretty stiff. It's not been cured at all. I've got some green onions here I can use. So I'm going to cut that off and you can see the inside is nice and watery. There's some green onions. So the neck is not fully cured. Let's get us some nice clean rings of onion here and we can test them side by side and see which one is better. So this is our uncured onion. I like purple onions, they're really delicious. I'm going to just peel off that outer ring and get me a couple of rings out of here. It's pretty firm. Pretty firm. Alright, that'll do. Let's put that right there. Alright, we're going to try our cured onion. It's been sitting in my garage for, about 10 days. You can see there's a color difference. The uncured onion was white, completely white all the way through. The cured onion has a nice purple tinge. You can see the white juices coming out. If you cut an onion and you leave it sit for a while, it's going to weep on you. And that's just what onions do. So we'll move that aside, get all this paper aside. This onion comes apart much easier. I'm going to take that outer skin and discard it. Alright, so we have a cured purple onion. I'm going to take a ring from that one. We have an uncured purple onion. I'm going to take the ring from that one. And we're going to taste test them. Okay, pardon the hat hair, but hey, it's real life. Alright, I'm going to try, here are our onions. We have the uncured onion here. We have the cured onion here. I'm going to try the uncured onion first. It's actually very, very mild. Very mild indeed. It has a good onion flavor. It's not super crunchy. I thought it would be more crunchy. Very mild and not very sweet. It's got an onion flavor, but it's very, very in the back. I mean, you could eat those like an apple. All right, let's try. Let me cleanse my palate here. Let's try our cured onion. You notice it's more purple like I showed you. And let's see if that makes a difference. Oh yeah, right off the bat. More onion kick. More flavor. Yeah, it's a better onion. It's a purple onion. I'm getting that heat, you know, that onion heat that kind of goes through your nasal cavity. I'm going to have onion breath for the rest of the night just from this. That's about 10 days of curing. That onion was a little bit cured already in the ground. Compared to this guy, uncured, there's not much flavor to that one. So, side-by-side comparison, I'm going to have to say that if this is true with all onions, curing your onions brings out more flavor, it improves the flavor, it concentrates the sweetness in that bulb, and yeah, it's a good idea. Cure your onions. Whew. All right, our next question comes from Nicole. Thank you, Nicole, for taking time to participate in our community here. She says, have you tried wrapping a piece of foil around the main stem of your squash plant to deter vine borers? No. Here are some squash plants that have been decimated by vine borers. On this squash, I'm not going to get a harvest. I didn't plant soon enough. On this one, I've got some coming up here. I'll probably not get these matured, but probably be able to eat them. Here's the deal. The kinds of squash that people like old Alabama gardener used to grow, yellow squash, they have a main vine, and you can wrap those with aluminum foil as they're coming up, and that will help to deter the vine borer caterpillars from boring into the vine because, well, it's aluminum foil. The vine borer comes along and lays her eggs all along these stems and all along your leaves, and when they hatch, they drop down and bore into the stems. The problem is they bore anywhere on the plant they get access to. I can see several of them here that have cut into my plant here. The problem with the kind of squash I grow is it's not one single main vine. Look at all those vines there. There's dozens of vines in there, and I'd have to come in here and work really hard to try to get those things covered with aluminum foil, and ultimately it's not really healthy for the plant to have its stems covered in metal. So what do? Well, I've heard that you can inject BT, which is a bacterial-based insecticide that I actually use. You can inject BT into these hollow stems, and that will kill the caterpillar once it gets in there. But that's just too much labor, too much work for a crop that isn't as important to me as maybe it is to you. So what I try to do is I just try to beat the vine borers. I try to plant things out and get a small harvest before the vine borers come. And when the vine borers come, and this happens all the time, I'll just pull this out, and this will be a place for a summer crop. So, can we get a harvest? This year we didn't get a big harvest. I got a couple of immature squashes. We can eat those. But I've got another one I can show you too. Check this out. This is a gray zucchini, and it's a round zucchini. Look at that. That is ready to harvest. So, well, it's really tight up in there. I'm going to go up in there with my clipper and nip it off. And there we go. We got a harvest. Nice little gray zucchini there. Isn't that awesome? So I did manage to beat the vine borers with this plant. And what's interesting is I see no vine borer damage whatsoever on this particular plant, which tells me the moths haven't found it yet. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave that other one in over there and let it grow as long as it will eke out life, as long as it will grow. And I'll let the borers go over there, because a stressed plant puts out pheromones that it is stressed. And those vine borer moths are attracted to that. So I will let that be a trap crop and hope that over here with my healthy plant that I might get a few more of these. That's awesome, huh? Look at that. The next question comes from Mary W. And Mary, you've been on Q&A before. She says, I found several small sweet potatoes from last year while clearing out my bed. Would they have worked for sprouting? I just chucked them in the compost, but I think she thinks she was too fast in chucking them. Yeah, look at this. Sweet potato slips are coming up great. We put these in just a couple of weeks ago, and they're doing like wildfire here. But look at these. Let me show you these. These little guys right here. These are sweet potatoes that I pulled out of my garden bed, just like you, Mary. These are ideal for starting slips. Look at that. They've already got slips growing on them. And so you could put these in soil or stick them in some water, and they will shoot up these slips for you. I like the soil method best, I think. I mean, just look at these. Look at these slips. This is about 18 inches long, and this is about a week and a half of growth. They started out like this. When I put them in, they were just little guys. You can go back and watch the video and see how these little guys, just like this, can grow into this in a couple of weeks. Now, granted, these were larger potatoes, but you could put these in just the same and start your sweet potato slips, and yeah, be ready to put a good summer harvest in. I hope I get a lot of these slips because I owe some to my neighbor, and we both want to grow sweet potatoes. I treat them as a summer crop. Sweet potatoes I put in, like what I just showed you, the squash plant that's going to come out, that's an ideal place to put in a summer crop. Cowpeas, eggplant, sweet potatoes. So I've got a good start. We're already off on that process here. I've got, what, 6 or 7 plants here, 3 plants here, 4 or 5 plants down in here. We're going to be good on sweet potato slips, and this doesn't even include the ones that are in the house in the water bottle. So yeah, you can use these little guys for your next crop. All right, our next question comes from Anna Dawson. She says, thanks for the information. I'm fighting it right now and it's been devastating. And what she's talking about is aminopyrrolid herbicide tainting or poisoning in your garden. This is a real thing and I keep harping on it. I mention it almost 6, 7, 8 times a year because it's very, very important. And I see gardeners over and over struggling with this when they buy a bag of manure at the Home Depot, or they bring in hay bales to use as mulch in their garden. Don't do that these days without some precautionary steps. Since it has been a while since I had my aminopyrrolid herbicide devastation, did the corn remediation work out for me, or did you eventually have to replace the soil? She says that she's lost about 150 gallons of finished compost, half of that already spread in the garden beds, and the areas mulched with the uncomposted hay. And they're trying to figure out how to save their soil that they've built up this year. Oh man, that just breaks my heart. You work so hard to compost and follow all the organic composting and gardening methods out there, and you get wrecked. Aminopyrrolid herbicides are used by farmers on hay fields, mostly hay. I'm not entirely sure if straw, grain crops are sprayed with this stuff, so I think that straw is generally considered to be safe, but hay is a grass, it's a monocot. So what farmers do is they'll come in and spray their fields with this stuff, aminopyrrolid herbicide, often going under the name of Grazon. And what happens is that kills out all the dicot plants. That's all the weeds, you know, anything you don't want that's not a grass. And the cattle can graze on that right away. It's supposedly safe for the cattle to graze on. Well, when they make manure out of that, that manure has Grazon herbicide in it. When you harvest that hay and bale it up and sell it to gardeners, it has aminopyrrolid herbicide in it. And that herbicide is persistent. Google this stuff, my friends, and you will find dozens and dozens and dozens of cases where this stuff kills gardeners' gardens. It should be illegal. But the problem is it's persistent. It sticks around. You can compost it. It can go through a cow's digestive tract and then be composted again, and it still will kill your plants. It will cause your leaves of your plants to curl up and look almost like fractals. It's a very nasty stuff. So the question that our questioner wants to know is, how did I remediate my garden? Did it work? What I did was I grew corn, and I grew a very tall and bio-heavy corn, lots of biomass. This wind is awful. The corn I grew was a flint corn, and I wasn't looking for a crop because I knew I had aminopyrrolid herbicide in my soil. But what happens is corn is a heavy feeder. It's also a monocot, it's a grass. And so all that herbicide was taken up into the biomass of the corn, and at the end of that growing season, I just chopped that corn down. Well, actually, a tropical storm did it for me. But when we took that corn out, all that corn was taken away, not composted because the herbicide is in the corn now. It was taken away and trashed. So did it work? We grew beans in the midst of the corn. Beans are a good bioassay. It's a good indicator crop, and the beans grew just fine. So I have had 3 to 4 good seasons in that garden bed right there, and the one next to it. So yes, did the remediation work? Did the corn take up the herbicide? It seems to have done so because everything that's growing in there for the last 3 or 4 seasons has done well. So yeah, if you got an aminopyrrolid herbicide problem, first, learn about it. Second, learn how to remediate that problem. It's not super hard, but it sure knocks out a growing season or 2. This is nasty stuff, folks. Nasty. All right, our next question comes from Bill Moore. Thanks for the question, Bill. He was asking, what is the variety of that bell pepper I mentioned in a previous video? I've got a bell pepper that's doing really well for me, and he wants to know what is it because he doesn't have a lot of luck with them. Well, here it is. This is the Ninja bell pepper, and this has 4 very large fruits on it, very large for the season. They're going to bulk up. There are 4 of them on here. Normally, when I grow bell peppers, I get maybe 2 or 3 good-sized peppers on the plant in the first flush. Here I've got 4 of them, and they're very large. Actually, there are 5 of them here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got 6 giant peppers here. This is the Ninja bell pepper. It's an F1 hybrid from Johnny Seeds. I started them from seeds. I've got more blossoms coming in. So this appears to be a very heavy producer of bell peppers. I could harvest these little ones right now, but I'm going to let them get bulked up. And I like my peppers to turn red. I don't remember if this Ninja will turn red, but I'll wait and see. Ninja bell pepper, very good variety. I mean, look at this. 1, 2, 3 down there. 4, 5, and 6. Yeah, that's a good one. Ninja bell. Francine Janine asks, how many bags of soil did it take to fill my veggie garden using the method I used to fill it? Well, this is actually a birdie's garden. It's essentially the same concept. I do have a veggie garden as well. It's at my son's house, and we filled them in the same manner. What we did was I just set this here on the ground. It's an open bottom, and we used the hugelkultur method, and I have a whole video on how I filled this bed. But essentially what happened was we filled the bottom with wood, limbs, garden debris, all kinds of stuff, all the way up to about 12 inches deep. 12 inches and below is all just wood. Then I added all my depleted potting soil, stuff from the garden to fill in all those gaps. So there's some garden soil down in there as well. Then on the top, I filled in with a layer of topsoil, bagged topsoil. I used like 3 bags of topsoil. And then to top it off, I used 8 bags of garden, raised bed gardening soil, commercial stuff, brand new stuff. So 8 bags. And that helped to weigh everything down, and it was filled all the way to the top. You can see it's settled about 2 inches now as things have decayed down in the base of the garden. So you can get away with filling one of these things if you've got a bunch of garden debris. You can get away with about 8 bags of new soil on top. And these onions, well, they grew in it just fine. So I like these gardens. They're a little bit pricey, but you know, if you need something to last and you want something that's raised and you can afford to fill it, they're a good option. Yeah, 8 bags. The last question comes from Karen W. She says, you probably have already learned this, but cinder blocks contain toxins. Concrete blocks do not. Are you using cinder blocks or are you using concrete blocks? Well, they haven't made cinder blocks in this country in at least 50 years, probably more. Everything I'm using here is a concrete block and perfectly safe for your garden. If you are reclaiming blocks from old building projects or demolition, you might want to be a little bit wary and know where your blocks come from. But I bought these all brand new from Home Depot. I had them ship a pallet of 110 blocks to my driveway, and that was how many blocks it took to start the base of this garden. I've since added on to it. But concrete blocks, I like them. They have their drawbacks, but they have their benefits as well. One of the benefits is that I'm building a raised bed, and normally you do that with wood, like 2x12s or something. I mean, I've had those things rot out in 3 years. These blocks have been here for, well, since 2014, and they're not going anywhere. They'll outlast me, and the other positive point is you can grow in the holes. Phoebe, what did you do? Phoebe finally pulled Samson, the daikon radish, out of the hole, and she's been munching on him over here. Hey, what are you doing eating a radish? Why are you eating a radish? Hey, is it good? Is it tasty? Yeah, you can't have any more. That's gonna cause problems. Well, there's the remnants of Samson, the daikon radish. We had him stuck in that hole, and well, I cut him down, and as he's been rotting here, Phoebe finally found it and pulled the remnants out. The downside of these blocks is, well, they sink into the ground over time. But so does your garden. Your garden amends the soil beneath it, and you gain depth. So it's a win-win for me. I like these blocks, and if you want to, garden in a permanent raised bed, I think it's a good option. So I like it. Well, hey, thanks for joining me on Black Gumbo Southern Gardening. I really appreciate all the new subscribers and all the comments that you've left behind. Thank you so much for joining our community here. I'm so grateful to have you. It looks like we're going to hit 160,000 subscribers maybe later this week or next week. We'll do a live stream to celebrate, and I hope you can join me on that. I'm not sure when it's going to happen. It'll happen soon after we hit 160. So thanks for joining us today. I hope you have happy gardening, and please subscribe if you haven't done so. That's very helpful. We'll talk to you next time. Happy gardening. Bye-bye. You hot? You want to go in? Huh? You're a hot dog, huh?